She used to say the greatest poverty in the world today is to be unloved, unwanted, uncared for. That loneliness, that interior poverty that anyone could experience, not just the materially poor people.
Even in her lifetime, Mother Teresa was considered a saint. Her calling? To accompany and serve the poorest of the poor in the streets of Calcutta and beyond. Now officially a saint, her postulator says that enacting mercy is what Mother Teresa was all about. Father Brian Kolodiejchuk is the editor of a new book of unpublished writings and testimonies that reveal Mother Teresa's rich and practical wisdom. A Call to Mercy, Hearts to Love, Hands to Serve is about putting mercy into action today on Subject Matters. Father Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on. Now, before we get into the book itself, let's look at the context we're in. We're celebrating a Jubilee Year of Mercy, and Pope Francis has canonized Mother Teresa. Now, you write in the book that this is very appropriate because you see an intimate connection between what Pope Francis is emphasizing and what Mother Teresa's life was all about.
Right.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, the main theme of Pope Francis is the mercy of God. He keeps emphasizing God's mercy. And the works of the Mother Teresa, Missionary of Charity, are exactly the works of mercy, both the corporal works, the spiritual works of mercy. And even we was noticing when we're looking at the words, Pope Francis often uses a tender to describe that mercy. And Mother also uses very much the word tender. So even that they have that, they're right on the same spiritual page, we might say.
There is so much in common. When you read this book, I can't help but think about Pope Francis. I think there's one part even when Mother Teresa is talking about confession, and she said this is not supposed to be a torturous experience.
Right,
and I thought immediately of Pope Francis because he
right.
always says the confessional is not a torture chamber. And just the emphasis on the forgiveness of God, that God always forgives, that there's no condition there, if someone comes and asks for forgiveness. So there's obviously a great connection between the two.
There's a couple of stories, I'm not sure if they're in the book, I don't remember already, but where someone comes, maybe a layperson or even a sister will come and say, I did this, and Mother will say, no, remember that Jesus forgives you, Mother has forgiven you. Jesus forgets, Mother forgets. And, and say this will serve to bring you closer to Jesus, to his merciful heart, and next time when you meet someone who maybe has done something similar, you'll have much greater sympathy and compassion for that person. So she always puts that positive spin on it, we might say.
Let's look at the structure of the book. It's a very interesting structure. It's not your typical biography. When I think of a postulator writing about a saint, I think about a definitive biography coming out, but this is a very unique structure in that each chapter is titled after one of the works of mercy. First the 7 corporal works of mercy, then the 7 spiritual works of mercy. And within those frameworks, you have excerpts, some never before published excerpts from Mother Teresa's writings, and also some eyewitness testimony, some experiences of her from other people, from her sisters, from co-workers, etc. Why did you choose that structure for this book?
Well, the biography is still a project to come.
All right.
So don't give up hope. Look forward to it, right? And so we want to do something, being the Jubilee of Mercy, being, in a way, Mother, the saint of the Jubilee, and even in Pope Francis asking that we remember or don't forget those works of mercy. So we thought it was a good opportunity to present the 14 works of mercy, both Mother speaking about them, and then, even more importantly, in a way, her example, how she herself lived them. And it's unique is that the first time we've used the actual material from the witnesses. So this is the first book that has really witnesses in such a substantial form.
Some of the testimony is really, really powerful, but there's a clear focus, and you talk about this throughout the book, on her actions more than her words. So even though there's some wonderful, wisdom and teaching that comes out of Mother Teresa, what you really wanted to emphasize was the actions.
Correct, yeah.
Why was that?
Well, Mother used to say we have to put love into living action. That was one of her key phrases. And she herself emphasized when she would speak, or even to crowds or groups or even individuals, it was to do something. She was very practical. And what could be done today is done today, and leave tomorrow for tomorrow. So just to emphasize the importance of really putting it into practice in the ordinary things. I think that's another key to those. Most of those examples are things that anyone can do. And she would keep saying, small things, great love. Ordinary things, extraordinary love. And she would say, that's the love with which we do those little things even that gives them their value. We human beings see these actions as small. But for God, she'll say, God is infinite, so when they're given and done with love, they become infinite in God's eyes, and that the love gives them the great value that they have.
Let's look at the process leading up to the canonization on September 4th. She died in 1997. I remember I was a boy at the time, but I remember the international news at that time because we had the death of Princess Diana, and then a week later, Mother Teresa, and these were two icons, on the global stage. When did the cause start? I mean, it was relatively short after her death, right?
Well, even the month after Mother Teresa died, the Archbishop of Calcutta went to the Congregation for Saints and asked whether it was possible to begin the cause already. And they said, well, not quite yet, and hold on. But they did suggest to him to start a commission, so that we had a little preparatory commission working on the documents, getting some witness testimony from those who might not be around 5 years later. And then we found out in January of '99 that the Holy Father had made the first exception to that rule from 1983 of waiting for 5 years. And
that was the first exception that
it was
he
the first
had,
exception,
he had made.
and John
Okay.
Paul II was the second one.
Right.
And Sister Lucia from Fatima was the third. Those are the only three so far.
Okay. What's the process like? I mean, none of us know what it takes to create a saint, so to speak, once they pass on to the next world. But what's it like to be involved in that, and just procedurally?
Well, I think there's no other institution or no other group, not even any other church, that dares to go through the life of someone as thoroughly as we Catholics do. And there's a logic to the whole process. It's not a top-down process, rather it's a bottom-up process. So the sense is that among the people of God, it's the work of the Holy Spirit, indicating that this person, in this case Mother Teresa, would be a candidate for official sainthood. That all the formal process that we do, we might say, is the Church's discernment of the Holy Spirit's action among the people. And at the end of all this work that we do, we come to, say, moral certainty, which is to say, after we've done everything humanly possible, we come to this conclusion. It's not absolute certainty, and therefore the miracle, we can say, is God's confirmation of the Church's discernment of what is the work of the Holy Spirit among the people of God. Thinking is, if there was some reason why Mother Teresa shouldn't be beatified or canonized, then God wouldn't do the miracle at their intercession.
Well, Father Brian, we have to take a quick break, but we'll be back right after this, speaking about Mother Teresa's personality, some of the struggles that she had to endure in her lifetime, and coming up a little bit later, Carolyn Wu is here from Catholic Relief Services to give her review of A Call to Mercy. Don't go anywhere. Our poor people are becoming poorer day by day. I beg you, sisters, be kind to them. Be a comfort to the poor and take every trouble to help them. Open your eyes to the needs of the poor. Put into living reality your vow to give wholehearted, free service to the poor, to Christ in his distressing disguise. A Call to Mercy, Hearts to Love, Hands to Serve, is published by Image Penguin Random House and is available for purchase at Ben McNally Books in Toronto. Also by Father Brian Kolodiejchuk, the New York Times bestseller, Come Be My Light, the private writings of the Saint of Calcutta. Here with Father Brian Kolodiejchuk discussing A Call to Mercy on the life and influence of Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Now, for her, acts of mercy, for example, feeding people, like we've discussed, were connected to the existential peripheries. A couple quotes here from her own writings that you put in the book. People don't just hunger for bread and rice, but for love, to be wanted. Many people in cold countries freeze to death, but nakedness is also the terrible loss of human dignity. And you, Father Brian, comment in one chapter that this feeling of being rejected, abandoned, let down was a real suffering that she wanted to remedy. What was the connection there that she saw between a specific charitable act and these deeper issues that people were in, struggles that people were going through?
Yeah, at the very beginning, when in India and when they first came out of India, the focus really was on the material works of mercy. And even the sisters were almost discouraged from speaking with the people they were serving, because the emphasis was on preaching without preaching, as we pray every day after communion. But then as the years went by and Mother Teresa had more experience of the West, then she realized that, as she used to say, the greatest poverty in the world today is to be unloved, unwanted, uncared for. That loneliness, that interior poverty that anyone could experience, not just the materially poor people.
And there's many, many powerful testimonies in the book about that, about people coming to the realization through an encounter with her that there is this deeper level of human dignity that she was trying to feed, that she was trying to enhance in all of the acts of mercy.
She had the sense that every human being, no matter what faith, religion, color, background, whatever, it was my brother, my sister. So there's this common father, and everyone is my brother, my sister, and therefore also having that dignity of being a human person and being a child of God. So that was very strong in her own awareness.
I want to read an excerpt from a letter she wrote to her sisters, actually, in the chapter on comforting the afflicted. She writes, "I'll never forget I met a lady who was in the most terrible pain. I've never seen a person in such great pain. She was dying of cancer, and I said to her, 'See, it is the kiss of Jesus, a sign that you have come close to him on the cross, that he can kiss you.' And then she joined her hands together and said, 'Mother, please tell Jesus to stop kissing me.'" This whole concept of suffering, which she faced, it's very difficult to understand. You read something like that, I mean, that's profound. How did she make sense of the suffering of people?
Okay. I think there's a good example of what we might call the genius of the Catholic and, meaning it's not one thing or another thing. I value suffering for its own sake and I just look for suffering. Or on the other hand, that suffering has no value and it's just to be gotten rid of. The value that comes to suffering because of the love with which we live it, accept it, even as we try to alleviate that suffering. All the works of mercy are to alleviate suffering. So it's not suffering for its own sake, or let's have some more suffering. But especially one of her phrases was to accept an offer. So we tried to relieve it. Mother herself took medicine. She went to the hospital when she really absolutely needed it. So we do try to alleviate. All the work is to alleviate that suffering, but while we are suffering, united to the suffering of Jesus, to the cross of Jesus, and done with love, then it has great supernatural value. And you see there's an example as well in that quote. It says how she relates everything to Jesus. She really lived that personal relationship with Jesus, and there's other examples where her criterion is always, well, what is Jesus asking? What is Jesus taking? And whatever it is, to accept it and with a smile. So that's vintage mother there.
Yeah, that comes through very strongly in the book. The other example that I picked up right away when I was reading it was her connection to the Eucharist. And she says a couple of times in excerpts that you use from her writings that the Jesus that we praise and adore in the host, the real presence, is the exact same Jesus that is in a dying person along the side of the road or coming to the house or whatever. And that's amazing. It seems very simple, but it's a very unique thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to see that.
No, Mother really combined this Jesus present in the Eucharist and Jesus present in the poor. And sometimes she would tell the sisters, now, you notice, see how Father in the morning at Mass, what devotion, what attention he gave to the Mass, to the Eucharist, holding up the Eucharist. So that same love, it's the same Jesus. So there, same thing, same love, same devotion, same tender touch, delicacy. So there's that real connection, Jesus in the Eucharist, Jesus in the poor.
Mm-hmm. It's very profound. You allude to the internal struggle that she had. She went through a long, long period of doubt, of feeling abandoned by God for many decades, actually. You don't talk a lot about it in the book, but it is a really important part of her life. And when we think of the saints, we tend to think of people who have a direct line to God. You know, they're in good relationship and good terms, they feel His presence and so forth. So tell us a little bit more about that and the experience of suffering that she had in that abandonment.
You know, I think even those closest to Mother Teresa, the great surprise it was to discover that. I think we were assuming that, you know, it wasn't easy to be Mother Teresa. You know, just to be the leader and the founder and the guide of the, you know, by the time she died, 4,000 sisters, just doing that would already be lots for most people. But just being Mother Teresa was difficult because you were always on, there was always the attention wherever you went, you were in the public, you're on the plane, when you arrive, it was humanly speaking very demanding. So I think we assumed, well, at least she must be enjoying this wonderful, beautiful union with Jesus that keeps her going, and that smile, she's radiating holiness, radiating joy, love. And then we discover, no, almost the exact opposite. You know, so she's a woman passionately in love with Jesus, wants to love him as he has never been loved before. And so she speaks of this painful loss. There was a period of real intense experienced union. And so then she speaks of this painful loss, but even more painful is the longing. So she wants to love him. She experiences that she is not loved by him. It's like abandoned. And she wants to love him, and she feels that she's not loving him. So, and at the same time is that this interior suffering is going on. Externally, she is like super faithful. Right. Gets up in the morning at 4:40. She made a promise at the beginning of her religious life to be the first one in the chapel in the morning, which she did until the very end when she needed help, so she couldn't do that anymore. But and right faithful to the end of the day, these little things that she would be faithful to, and just, you know, blind faith and just acting, loving, even though she didn't feel that love.
Extraordinary.
So, it's very heroic. It's extremely, I mean, maybe the woman would understand better than us simple men what it might mean, you know, to be totally in love with your husband, and it seems like your husband doesn't give you any attention, and you want to love him, and you still you feel that you're not loving him, and yet that love that you show from morning to night. So for me, it's like the one single most heroic aspect of her life.
Dr. Carolyn Wu is here to give her review of A Call to Mercy. She's the president and CEO of Catholic Relief Services in the United States, so she's no stranger to the Church's charity and development work. Carolyn.
So this book, A Call to Mercy, I think is coming out at a really excellent time. I don't see it as another book of tribute to Blessed Teresa. I see it actually as what we need at this point, because a canonization, the making of a saint, could make her inaccessible to us. We would say, oh, she is a saint. Of course, we can't do that. I think that is the danger. I think what this book does is that it recounts the daily actions of Mother Teresa. It recounts how she encountered people and what she did in the most ordinary, daily basis. And think about the missionaries of charity. How did they learn from her? How did she form them? How did she teach them? And it's really by her own example. And every day there were these surprises that came to her. There were always people she met on the street, or people, you know, there could be a flood, there could be an emergency, and how she responded. And not only that, but also how does she cultivate this sense of seeing Christ in other people? And, you know, the importance of prayer, the importance of quiet. And also when she made statements that were, she thought a bit harsh, how she apologized, for example, and how in certain cases she had to chastise her sisters. So very ordinary, very daily. So I think this is a book about a saint, but it's about her earthly journey lived every day on that path. And I think that's what I get from it.
Thank you, Carolyn, very much for your sharing your thoughts. We have to take another quick break, but we'll be right back with some concluding remarks from Father Brian Kolodiejchuk. Don't go anywhere. Apart from his work as the postulator for the cause of canonization for Mother Teresa, Father Brian is the Superior General of the Missionaries of Charity Fathers, the clerical branch of the religious community who serve the sisters and brothers through their ministerial priesthood. Along with the vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience, the Missionaries of Charity Fathers take a fourth vow, in the spirit of Saint Teresa, their founder, of wholehearted and free service to the poorest of the poor. Love is for today. Programs are for the future. We are for today. When tomorrow will come, we shall see what we can do. Somebody is thirsty for water today, hungry for food today. Tomorrow we will not have them if we don't feed them today. So be concerned with what you can do today. Father Brian, the mission of the order is to accompany and take care of the poorest of the poor, those who have been abandoned, those who have been forgotten, those who are dying. In Canada, we've just recently legalized euthanasia. This is a huge development in our country. So I wanted to ask you, what can we learn from Mother Teresa's approach to caring for the dying when we see in the world more and more trends like we're seeing in Canada?
Yeah, I think just as Mother Teresa was very strong pro-life or against abortion, very much that human life is something to be loved, to be accepted, wanted from conception. The same thing she would say now after her death, when that wasn't such a big question. I think she would see it in the same way as part of that respecting the dignity of the human person, and so that that's up to God to decide when we die, and our task is that we treat the person who is suffering with that respect, respect their dignity, help them to die well with God, and she would be very horrified probably just by this new development.
And so certainly the lessons that we learn about her, from her in the book could help guide us.
Well, just the Home for the Dying, that was one of the main things. The people who were literally dying on the streets, at least at the very end, they would know that they were loved. She had a famous incident when someone came and the man was dying, and just a very short period of time in the Home for the Dying, and where he says, all my life I lived on the street as an animal, and now I'm dying like an angel, loved and cared for. So,
to many people in the world, and not just Catholics, Mother Teresa was a walking saint, a living saint. Having gone through the process, you've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's, and it's official. What's it like when you get to the end of a process like this?
Well, there's that human satisfaction of having, by the grace of God, done the process well to a good result, and I think now that the big difference, I think, will be that for the whole Church, that she's Saint Teresa of Calcutta now, and even much more that she can be spoken of in a much more public way, liturgically, so we can ask her intercession and look at her life, the example that she has given us. She's already in the culture even representing love, charity, kindness. You'll see in a movie or a novel or something, someone will say, "Well, who do you think I am, Mother Teresa?" And so that she's already in the culture already identified with goodness, kindness.
So many people know about her, obviously, that there's different takes on her life. Are there any challenges in trying to maintain the authentic story of Mother Teresa?
Well, there's two aspects, perhaps I could say. One is the Missionary of Charity Fathers, to which I belong. That one of Mother's concerns at the end of her life was that we would be caretakers, if you want to say, of the cares, and to make sure of that authenticity, that we keep the right spirit, the right interpretation of the different elements of the aspects of our life. And then another work of the postulation that was set up after the beatification, especially in view of this moment of an hour after the canonization, is Mother Teresa Center is, our key word is authenticity, to make sure that the authentic Mother is there in her writings. So when they see that it's the Mother Teresa Center, or for now my name, so then it must be, that's the real Mother Teresa there. Mm-hmm. And so both positively in making sure her words are out there, her understanding of how she understood her life, her work, her message, and negatively to protect against abuse.
And certainly the book coming out during the Jubilee Year of Mercy is another very clear hermeneutical key for understanding what she was all about, and Pope Francis seems to be calling us to exactly the same thing.
Right, so I think the mind of the Holy Father and Archbishop Fisichella for the new evangelization is that, in a way, as in other Jubilee years, there was a canonization of a well-known person. So in this way, Mother Teresa, we can say, is the saint of the Jubilee. And then when Pope Francis was presenting the Jubilee, one of the things he did say was that we remember these works of mercy, the corporal and the spiritual works of mercy. So for all of those reasons, it came together to present this rather than a biography.
Father Brian, thanks a lot for writing the book, and thanks for playing your part to give the Church another saint.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The book is A Call to Mercy, Hearts to Love, Hands to Serve, on Saint Mother Teresa, edited by her postulator, Father Brian Kolodiejchuk. You can get it right here at Ben McNally Books in downtown Toronto, or online from Penguin Random House. To find out more about the Missionaries of Charity, you can visit motherteresa.org. I want to thank our guest reviewer today, Dr. Carolyn Wu of Catholic Relief Services. You can find out more about the great work that CRS does by visiting crs.org. And remember, if you want to see my video review of A Call to Mercy and more great content from the show, visit our website, saltandlighttv.org/subject matters. That's all for this episode. We'll see you again next time. Subject Matters with Sebastian Gomes is sponsored by the Cullen family. Our Salt and Light team works hard to bring you quality Catholic programming like Subject Matters. Please consider supporting our mission by making a donation today. Thank you for your generosity, and remember, our hope begins with you.